Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Easter wherever you are. Welcome to Focus on Liberia. We are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. We're here to keep our promise to bring you something for our kids who are staying home because of coronavirus. We want to welcome all of you from across the globe. This is Focus on Liberia. Our topic tonight is we're going to do a deep dive into our Liberian history, culture, starting with the counties of Liberia. And we have something packaged for you, as we said before. Due to the coronavirus epidemic, kids are home, sometimes schooling online, or they are not in school at all. So we decided to do something for the kids, K through 12. So wherever you are, we want to get your children together to watch this. It's specifically packaged for them. The last time we did a show on parents, what parents need to do to help their kids while they are at home during this pandemic. Now we want to target the students or the children themselves. And with me, I have Danielle Guishard, who is going to do this tonight. Danielle, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you, Dennis.
Danielle is going to be hosting this show tonight. I'm going to be co-hosting along with Danielle. And we have our guest, Dr. Vivian Seton, who's our guest. Dr. Seton, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you, Dennis, for having me.
Dr. Seton is no stranger to this platform. She's been here a couple of times. So at this time, I'm going to pass this over to Danielle, who's going to take it away from me. Danielle, it's all yours.
Thanks, Dennis, and welcome again to all of our guests. Thank you for joining us. Happy Easter to all of our Christian viewers. This is a big day on the Christian calendar. And thank you for spending part of your Easter with us today. And as Dennis mentioned, today we will talk about the 15 counties or the counties of Liberia. And this will be an opportunity for your children to hear this and learn about each of the counties and things that they can ask you to show them the next time you take them to Liberia. Okay, so as I said, there are 15 counties in Liberia currently. And we will go through the list of counties in alphabetical order. But before we do that, I believe today we have 15 counties, but we started with only 3. Is that correct, Dennis? Okay, and what were those 3?
Seton County, Grand Bassett, and Montserrat.
Right, and today we have moved on to 15 counties. Dr. Seton, do you have anything to add to that before we move on?
Well, I'm the old teacher, okay? Old in parentheses, old in age, and a long old teacher. I've been teaching for a long time. So before we get to the 15 counties, let's go back a little bit. When Liberia was founded, we didn't have that much territory. What we call Maryland today didn't join the Republic until 1957. And what we call Seton didn't join until not 1957, but 1857. And Seton didn't join until 1852. Seton used to be called Mississippi in Africa. And when you go to Seton, there's a street, it's called Mississippi Avenue. So the country evolved, the country purchased land, the people in Liberia, the Republic, fought wars and annexed land. And so Liberia became larger. And as it became larger, the territory became bigger. And so therefore, there was a need to have more counties. At first, we had what we called provinces, okay? We had the Northern Province, the Central Province, and the Eastern Province. And then later on, in 1964, they were made into counties. We had 9 counties and 5 territories. And then later on in 1984, the government decided to turn these counties into a bigger number, to enlarge them or to multiply them, and now we have 15. Okay, but it
Nice.
was processed. Yes.
Beautiful, beautiful history there. So to start in alphabetical order, as I said, the first county we'll talk about is Bomi County. And the capital of Bomi County is called Tudmanburg. So is there any story behind the name of the capital, Tudmanburg? How did we come up with that?
Well, and as the youngsters will know, um, President William V.S. Tubman was president of Liberia from 1944 until his death in 1971. He was president of Liberia for 27 years. And he is the one who really brought Liberia into the 21st century. He had what they call the open door policy. And during his administration, a lot of companies went to Liberia. And an American company called Liberia Mining Company, they started mining ore in what we call Bomi Hills. And so therefore, the capital of Bomi became Tubmanburg. Okay, that's where the name comes from.
Okay, beautiful. And one of the sites of interest in Bomi County is Blue Lake or Bomi Lake. And this is a 300 feet deep lake, and it's very blue. That's why it's called Blue Lake. And it is, I'm sorry, and it's understood that the lake is so blue because of the sun's reflection, as it is, the lake is surrounded by mountains, and the waters spring from a huge pit that was dug by the Liberia Mining Company, an American-owned company. So I guess a combination of the shadowing from the mountains together with the reflection of the sun helps to make this lake appear so blue.
And Danielle, Bomi County was one of those counties that was added to make the counties 13 from or 9 counties. So Bomi was one of those new counties added during the presidency of President Doe to make the counties 13 at that time.
Okay. And so Bomi is rich in iron ore, is that correct? Is that why the Liberia Mining Company was present there?
Yes, Bomi is very, in fact, Liberia as a whole, let me just say this, Liberia is one of the wealthiest countries in the world. Liberia has everything. We have undiscovered sources of water. Some countries don't even have water. The countries that are in the desert, they don't have water. Liberia has a lot of water. Liberia is the only country in the world where it rains every month. Sometimes at night, you will just hear rain for about 2 or 3 minutes and it stops. But every month, rain falls in Liberia. And water is a blessing. So I think Liberia has been blessed. Liberia has a lot of minerals. We have everything from plutonium, uranium, bauxite, iron ore, copper, zinc, all the different minerals. We have gold, diamonds, silver, everything. So, but because we have this large deposits of iron ore, there are several mining companies that settled in Liberia to mine, both American and Canadian and German. So, but Bomi was the first one.
Okay, and we have a comment from Jerome Roberts. He said, "Wow, that's my county, and it's the number 1." So if you're from Bomi, please give us a thumbs up or a heart. Or whenever we reach your county, give a thumbs up or a heart as we talk about your county. Okay. Next up, we have Bong County, and the capital of Bong County is Banga. Okay, and one of the sites in Bong County is the Patawi waterfall, which is very beautiful. We're unable to show you pictures right now, but Patawi waterfall is one of the, I guess, more beautiful places in Liberia, and there's an opportunity there for tourism, definitely. Bone County is also where Cuttington University is located, correct?
Yes, Bong County has several educational, world-known educational facilities. We have Cuttington University College, which was formed by the Episcopal Church, and that's their highest institution of learning. And then we have BWI, named after Booker Washington, the man who did a lot of work in industry and taught people how to use tools and other mechanical devices. And it's called Booker Washington Institute, and it's in the capital of Bong, and it's in Kakata. And okay.
Okay, okay.
All right, and before then, Bong County was one of those counties that was added to make the counties 5 or 9 from 5, because originally we have, so it was one of those that was added. Before then, it was called, I believe, the Central Province, so that's a central part of Liberia. During the days of the war, the Banga was the capital city of the area being controlled by then rebel leader Charles Taylor. So that made Banga famous also and very popular.
And another thing about Bong County is where Liberia had its second largest mining company, the Bong Mine Company. And Bong Mine was a European establishment established by the Germans and some other European countries. And they used to ship the iron ore from Bong Mine to Monrovia, and they built a railroad that came down from Bong Mine to the Freeport of Monrovia. So, and it was where thousands of Liberians were employed working in the mines.
If you are watching us and you live in Bong Mines, give us a thumb up, because Bong Mine was a popular area, or the school there was very good. I have some friends from there. So I want to say a shout out to all people from Bong County, especially Bong Mines.
Okay. And then next up, we have Bapaloo County. And the capital of Bapaloo County is Bapaloo. Okay. And so Bapaloo is one of the newer counties, is that correct?
Yes, it's, I think it's the newest county in Liberia. Bapaloo is located in the north of Liberia, near the Guinea border. And the residents of Bapaloo, there are 6 districts in Bapaloo, and the residents of Liberia is is far away from the capital city, so they have to, they're not as close to the capital as some of the other counties, and their development is rapid and ongoing.
Okay. And so Bapaloo also has what's called the Gullah Forest National Park. It shares this forest with Guinea as well. And it's much unexplored. However, recently studies have shown that several new species, or at least new to science, have been found in that forest. Including 6 dragonfly species and 3 butterfly species, 1 frog species, and 1 mammal species. So definitely an opportunity there for us with tourism again, adventure seekers, those who would want to go on safaris, the Gullah Forest National Park in Babalu.
And one thing Bapolo is also noted for, this was the site of a prison where they used to take political prisoners. It's a maximum security prison called Bele Yala. I have a friend from there who said it's really called Bele Yela. So Bele Yela was a maximum security prison, mainly political prisoners who the president, whoever was the president, did not like. They were taken to this maximum security prison. And so that's why, but it's no longer there. This was in the deepest part of the jungle where they just dropped them. And this was a very bad place. And so Bele Yala was found in Buffalo County.
And I think another interesting thing about Babalu County, they have on their county map, there is a diamond is depicted in the map. And that is to show the richness of the resources in that county as well. And the background of the flag is also gold. So that's to depict that there is gold and diamond in Babalu County. So just an interesting fact. Okay. And so we have Marianne Samuels is asking about Grand Bassett County.
We got it there.
So we're going in alphabetical order, and Grand Bassett County is next. And so Grand Bassett County, the capital of that county is Buchanan. Buchanan is another major port of Liberia. Is this correct?
Yes, Buchanan, Liberia has several mining companies. So the third one to be established, in fact, it was the second one to be established, was LAMCO, the Liberian American Mining Company. It was a joint venture between Liberia, the United States, Canada, Germany, and Sweden. So when you go up to Nimba, you see a lot of Swedes, Norwegians, Danes, Finns. They all work for LAMCO. But because the mines are located all the way up in Nimba, to bring the iron ore down to the ocean to be transported to the United States and Europe, they built a port in Buchanan, in what we call Lower Buchanan. So that's another port that handles the iron ore that is mined in Liberia.
Okay. And so because Grand Bassett County is near the ocean as well, they have very beautiful beaches. And there are even some resorts that are there right now.
Oh yes, there's a lot of development for tourism in Liberia going on. And so the Liberian coast is well suited for tourism, water sports, surfing. It's incredible, and we're hoping that when things develop and settle down in Liberia all the way, that Liberia will be a major tourism attraction, because the ocean is very nice and the weather is good for the most part of the year.
And one thing about Buchanan, or Grand Bassett County, the capital of Buchanan, is also called Bezon. According to Dr. Ba, who was on this show talking about the Bassett people, said the name Bezon meaning the low is rotten. So because when they were traveling, they make a load out of pound touches to take their load. So when they got there, they put it down. And after some time, they realized that, it was not good again to hold their stuff. So they said to each other, the thing we're carrying our stuff in is rotten. Load is where, so say where zonio, where zon. So that's how the name Bezon, or which when we say the English name Buchanan, but the original name is Bezon, meaning the load has gotten rotten.
Nice story. And we have a correction here or an addition here from Christopher Wesley. He says the Gullah National Park covers 2 counties, Bapaloo and Cape Mont counties, and he is correct. So that
He's
is
quite
an
correct.
addition.
He's quite correct. Yeah.
So point of correction, thank you. And next up is Grand Cape Mont County. The capital of Grand Cape Mont County is Robertsport. And so Robertsport has become very synonymous with surfing and tourists going to Robertsport to surf, as Grand Cape Mount is also surrounded by or near the Atlantic Ocean. One of the sites also in Grand Cape Mount County is Lake Piso. And I believe it is the largest lake in Liberia. And the name Piso comes from, I'm not sure exactly which language in Liberia, but it comes from a term meaning pigeon's hole, which is a reference to the flocks of pigeons that would come to Lake Piso for water at one point in time. So Lake Piso is another point of interest in Grand Cape Mount.
Can I relate a legend? Yes. The legend has it that there was a drought many hundreds of years ago, and the pigeons and the dove, the P in Vi is the dove, and so means the hole. So in other words, the dove dug the hole. So when there was this drought, the dove is a good animal. It's a holy bird. So they felt sorry for the people in the area. So they dug a big hole. And when it finally rained, this hole filled with water. And so the people in the area were no longer in a drought situation and they had water to drink. So they named the lake after the dove. Piso. Okay.
And Robertsport, I believe, was named after Joseph Jenkins Roberts.
Yes, the first president of Liberia. And when the missionaries went to Africa, the first settlement was Grand Cape Mount County. It's a beautiful county with hills and mountains. And they settled there and they opened one of the oldest missionary institutions in Africa. St. John's Mission is called, and it's a high school. At one time, they wanted to even turn it into a college, and it also has a girls' division called Bethany. Okay, and that's where a lot of Liberian politicians, the leaders of the country, most of them were educated at St. John's until this formed the University of Liberia.
Nice. And also, on the Grand Cape Mount County flag, there's a depiction of a mountain. And so my understanding is that that is supposed to depict the Wakala Mountain. So I guess that's another place of interest or point of interest within the county.
Oh, yes. Cape Mount has a lot of shrines and relics and historic, very interesting places that people can visit. Even by the last century or 2 centuries ago, a lot of Europeans and missionaries went to Cape Mount to visit some of these attractions. For example, they had a town where the river was infested with alligators, so people couldn't cross the river. The alligators would capsize the boat, so they sacrificed. They made the priest told them that they had to sacrifice. They have to make a sacrifice to this alligator. So they sacrificed chicken and other animals to the alligator. So he became such that he stopped eating human beings, but he would come into the town for them to give him a chicken to eat, and they would give him a bottle of gin to drink. And that town is still there, and you can still see the alligator, because you know that alligators are mammals that live to be hundreds of years old. They can live to be 200 years old. So the same alligator is still there, and the white people call him Mamada, and the place is called Suri. Okay.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia. We are discussing the counties of Liberia, and this is a lesson for mainly our K through 12 kids that were born. Most of whom were born outside Liberia. We are bringing this education as you stay home during this quarantine. We want you to bring your kids and let's learn about Liberia. Back to you, Danielle.
Yes, up next is Grand Jita County. And Grand Jita, the capital of Grand Jita County is Zwedru. And one of the points of interest there in Grand Jita is Kutu Mountain. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Let me just make one statement about Grand Cape Mount County.
Okay.
Yes, at Grand Cape Mount County, there's a man who was called Ole Zokulu, and he said he had a dream about God showing him a script. So the white people are the only people in Africa south of the Sahara who have their own script. And Europeans and scholars would go to Grand Cape Mount County to study this script. And in World War II, people used the script as a code language. And scholars like to study it because it's very it's very informative, and when you know the script, you can read a lot of the old manuscripts in Africa.
Yeah, and
right.
Dr. Gullah is able to read and write that script. So if you are watching us and you want to know how the vice script look like, how to read and write, please call Dr. Gullah Fale, or his son is right here in Metro Atlanta, Saki Gullah Fale, to get in touch with his dad so we can learn how to read and write the vice script. That's from Grand Cape Mount County. So we go back to Grand Jita. The capital, as you said, Zwedru.
Yes.
Most of the time in southeast Liberia, if you hear they are building on top of stuff. So when you hear Dro is on top or the head, so I believe that could be like they are living on top of a mountain or something. So that I believe would be the name. Grand Jita, that was part of the new counties added so that increased the number of counties from 4 to 9. So Grand Jita was one of those. And originally, the county we known today as River G County was part of Grand Jita County. And they used to call that Lower Grand Jita. So right now, River G is on its own, and so you have that part of Grand Jita on its own.
May I make I traveled through Grand Jita at one time. In 1970, for Tubman's 75th birth anniversary, I went to Cape Palmas to open a radio station, and we drove because everybody was going to Harper City, so we didn't have enough planes, so I drove through Grand Jita. And when you get to Grand Jita, the trees are very tall. They are hundreds, some of them are 100 feet, 200 feet tall. So the high forest, and that's why Grand Jita is a major mining area. The concessions went to Grand Jita to do logging. And that's of course one of the export items in Liberia, logs and wood.
Okay, so in Grand Jita they have the forests as well as iron ore. So there was mining of iron ore as in Grand Jita as well?
Well, mostly logging at that time. I don't know whether they have started doing mining at this point, but at that time they were doing logging, and of course gold is mined all over Liberia because gold is everywhere, even in your yard. If you know how to look for it, you will find it there. So
beautiful. And I'll say this, when you look at the county flags, almost all of them have some aspect of green in the flag, and that's to depict the forests and the greenery, vegetation, and the fertility of the Liberian soil. So it definitely gives us hope for growth also in the agriculture sector, to know we have such rich, fertile soil.
Oh yes,
Next.
Liberia is one of the most fertile grounds in the world. In fact, when the Portuguese and the Dutch came to Liberia in the 11th, 12th, 13th, and 14th century, they called the area the Green Coast because
Mhm.
when you look at Liberia, it's green, it's verdant, it's inviting, it's fruitful. So that's where the word comes from, Green
Yes.
Coast.
And then up next, we have Grand Cru County. And the capital of Grand Cru County is Barclayville. And so, is there a story there with the name of the capital, Barclayville?
Well, I don't know the reason, but I guess at the time President Barclay was in the mansion, was the president of Liberia. Edwin Barclay, he was president from, I think, 1936 until 1944. And so I guess, when people honor rulers by naming different places after them. So I guess people honored him by naming the capital of that part of Liberia after him. Okay.
And Grand Cru was created under President Doe as a county. Before that, you have the Cru Coast Territory and the Southtown Territory. So those two territories were part of what is Seton and Marilyn County. So they carved out of that part, and now instead of Cru Coast Territory and Southtown Territory, you have a county called Grand Cru County. So Grand Cru, and the name should not, I don't believe the name should not deceive you. It's not all Cru people. You also have the Grable people. I believe even the capital Barclayville, if I'm not mistaken, should be in the Grable section. So Southtown is on the Cru side. So Barclayville or Grand Cru, that's a new county that made it county 13, and it came out of Cru Coast Territory and Southtown Territory.
All right, and also within the Grand Cru flag, there's also yellow or gold, and that is to depict that there are gold deposits within that county as well. So, as Dr. Seton said, Liberia is just very rich in resources and minerals, and so Grand Cru is no exception to that also. Okay. And then up next, we have Lofa County. The capital of Lofa is Vonjima. Okay, so what do we know about Lofa County?
Um, well, I don't know a lot, but from what I've heard, Lofa County, what we call Lofa County today, um, was very independent, and they didn't join the republic until the 1915. And if you study Liberian history, you will read about what they call the 1915 Act. In other words, President Howard was president of Liberia, and they coerced the Lomas because Lofa is the majority of the people there are either Bandi, Loma, PC. So they had coerced these people to join the republic. And if you know a little bit about Liberia at the time in the 50s, most of the members of the Liberian armed forces, what we used to call the Liberian Frontier Force, were from Lofa. And we for some reason we call them Buse people, okay? And that misnomer comes from the fact that one of the leaders was a man they called Buzi. So we, the people who didn't speak, so when the group comes from Lofa, they will go to see Mr. Buzi. But we said, okay, so if Buzi's people have come, so we call them the Buzi people. Okay, but those are the Lofians, all right? And Wanjima is their largest city, located in the mountain. And it's very nice in Lofa. If you in Liberia, if you want to go to an area that is cool, you can travel to Lofa. It's very nice up there, and it reminds you of Europe or parts of the United States in the spring.
And something else I forgot to point out when we were talking about Cru County, the last time census information or data was collected, Cru was the least populated county. So
Yes, it only has 104,000 people. Okay, so you see, Liberia, because of the forest, um, settlement wasn't um, as thick as there was not a lot of settlement in because the forest was high, the forest is high, and it's difficult for people to live there. So people migrated to other places where life was easier. So Wedru, Grand Chile, Grand Cru, these areas are not very populated.
okay.
Going back to Lofa, Lofa is a very big county. Even before Bapulu was carved out of that, after Bapulu was carved out, it's still big. And at that time, it was one of the counties that had almost all the major, the three major ethnic groups in one place. So you have, before Bapulu came out, you have the Bel part of the Kwa, you have, Bandi, Loma, and so the three major ethnic groups or the three major groupings, they're all in Lofa County. So it's a conglomeration of many different people. And those days we say Nimba, Bong, and Lofa, we call them the bread basket. So they make a lot of farm, produce a lot of food. The tobogi oil that we all are accustomed to now comes from Lofa.
And the Lofans used to wage a lot of wars back in the day. Their towns were fortified. They built fences and fortifications around the town. Zigida, Fisibu, you couldn't just go into those towns. People had to fight war to get in because I guess because of the distance, they didn't consider themselves part of Liberia until the beginning of the 20th century.
Also to add that we have 5 counties, so Lofa was part of the 4 counties that were added to make that 5. So you have Lofa, Nimba, Bong, and Granjia being added, I think, under the President Tutman. That's how, when I was in grade school, I learned that we have 9 counties, and because of this, and we have some good friends from Lofa.
Oh, yeah.
And then next up, we have Magibi County. And the capital of Magibi is Kakata. Okay, and so Magibi is popular because of, or one of the reasons it's popular is because of the Firestone Plantation that is in Magibi County. Right, so on that plantation, it's rubber trees. I guess it's still called Firestone in Liberia today, but here in the U.S., they've changed their name to Bridgestone. Nonetheless, the relationship is still there, and rubber is tapped in Liberia and used to make tires and other rubber products.
It was one of those counties after we had 9 counties that went up to 13. And at that time, we had 2 territories, Marshall Territory and Gibi Territory. So Marshall and Gibi joined to make Mangibi County. Very, very popular before the war for playing soccer because of its proximity to Monrovia. So you have people, going back and forth. Imagine Kakata is right there. The Roberts International Airport, and all those places are part of Mangibi County. And so some of the best sporting teams that could compete with teams in Monrovia came from Mangibi County.
Dr. Seton, do you have anything to add from Magibi?
Oh, yes, Magibi is undergoing a lot of development. The Firestone, or what you call the Bridgeport um, rubber plantations, and a lot of development took place there. Kakata, which is a city which is not too far from Monrovia, um, and because of the proximity, they were up to date. They always were in Monrovia and had a lot to contribute to the national development.
And Mongibi is where my mother is from, so it holds a special place in my heart as well.
Oh yes, the knuckles are from Carisburg. Yes,
Well,
the Uris, the knuckles. Yes, I can imagine. Yes,
my mother grew up in the Kakata area, and yeah, so and her family is still there in a town or village called Seton.
Okay, I've heard about Jacinta.
How you call the village again?
Seton.
All right.
Okay.
Let me read some comments as we continue. And once again, want to say welcome to Focus on Liberia. We are discussing the counties of Liberia, and we want to highlight the capital city, little history behind those counties, and some of the major attractions in those counties. Christopher said Mount Gibby is the conglomeration of Marshall and Gibby territory. Yes, that's correct. Steve Bowler said you have the two counties I hail from back to back. Yay! I love Mount Gibby where I was born, Kakata especially. Josephine Wesley said, wow, that is where my mother is from. I'm a granddaughter of Grand Cru. And Steve also said, I think this educative section applies to some of us who did not have the opportunity to grow up and learn this history due to the Civil War right after we were born. Steve, that's why when we're talking, you need to listen to us. You're post-Civil War. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'll keep your comments coming. This is intended to just enlighten our children, especially those born outside Liberia, and those who did not grow up there. The war came, and so we didn't know much about our counties. So there you have the education, and enjoy it. Back to you, Danielle.
Thank you. Up next, we have Marilyn County, and the capital of Marilyn County is Harper. Okay, and so within Maryland, there are a lot of, I guess, historic sites, you can call them. One of the places there is President William Tubman's residence. It's in ruins right now, but it's a place that could be renovated and be a historical site for visits and tours as well. So what is the relation with President Tubman and Harper or Marilyn County?
Well, Maryland has a very interesting history. A lot of people in the city of Baltimore migrated to Maryland. Most of the residents came from Baltimore, and they settled in Maryland. And for some reason, the people in Maryland built big houses. Okay, they don't build little houses. So when you go to Harper City, you see these huge mansions belonging to one person. And what they did, they laid Maryland out. So they have streets and that are beautiful and well laid out. Maryland itself is on the hill naturally, but is one of the nicest tourist attractions in West Africa, and it could become one of the best tourist attractions because Maryland is Harper City is situated on rocks, on big boulders, so the waves come and splash against the rocks, and there's always this roar and noise from the sea, and it will be a very lucrative tourist area. Harper City is one of the nicest cities in Liberia, but unfortunately, because of the different wars, the roads became impassable, so it has become a little bit secluded from the rest of the country. Maryland joined the Republic in 1857. They fought wars with different tribes and the central government, but finally they acquiesced to become part of the republic.
Okay.
Um,
And from pictures, I could see that Maryland does, or Harper City specifically, looks like an old, I'm not sure if it's colonial or Victorian town. As you said, the streets are laid out. The homes look like old homes that you would find maybe in the South or in, in like colonial Virginia and Maryland. And I guess that's where the influence came from, the
yes,
settlers
that's so true.
I'm sorry?
No, I said that's so true. And the people in Maryland were very prosperous. They were, and then when, of course, when Tubman was born in Maryland, and when he became president, he developed Maryland. In fact, there are so many things in Maryland were even better than in Monrovia, because Maryland always got the best. So they were up to date and very modern. Yes, they have a lot of beautiful churches in Maryland. It's a nice place to live and grow up. And they have a university in Maryland. And Firestone had another plantation in Maryland, a rubber plantation. So
Yeah, very
Maryland
beautiful
always had the
place.
best. Okay?
This,
Electricity, paved roads, paved streets, everything was tip top in Maryland.
and the schools are very good, as you already said. Tubman College, which now is Tubman University, that's in Maryland. There are some good high schools that are, people graduated from that are doing very well, even from the high school days. And so Maryland has that history long before even the government started to develop schools. Churches in that part of the country, they were, developed, people were going there getting educated. So the people of Maryland were among the early people to really go that far in book business.
Can I say something?
Sure.
The first African bishop, or the first bishop of an Episcopal church, was the Bishop Gardner, T. Mamalu Gardner. He was the bishop of St. Luke's parish in Harper City. And the churches there are beautiful, they're big, and he became the first Episcopal bishop in Africa, or the first Black Episcopal bishop in Africa. And Maryland has that, they boast of it all the time, that they had the first Episcopal bishop in Africa, the first Black man to become an Episcopal bishop. And they have wonderful schools. Our Lady of Fatima, there's a school there. And the hospital in Harper City, J.J. Dawson Hospital, was always top notch. They sent the best doctors to Harper. It was a nice place to live, clean. And it is even nowadays, although things are not what they used to be, but they're still better than some other places.
And also, Christopher Wesley has pointed out Maryland has one of our major lakes, Lake Shepherd. And he's correct. And Lake Shepherd, I believe, is the second largest lake in Liberia. Another beautiful area with a lot of potential for tourism. Very beautiful, placid, calm lake.
There's a gentleman who's trying to run to be a senator for Maryland, and every day he goes on Facebook to advertise the beauty of Maryland and that it should become one of the next tourist attractions in the world.
Maryland is beautiful, as much of Liberia. And Arenia Taylor Togba says Harper is the most beautiful city in Liberia. So we know where she's from.
Yes, she doesn't have to tell us. We know from that. Yeah. It's very beautiful, really. Yeah. In fact, I was baptized. Let me just say this: Bishop Gardner was my mother's uncle. So when I was born, she didn't have me baptized right away. She waited until I was 10, and she sent me to Harper to be baptized. So I was baptized in the church that my grand uncle built. So I don't know.
Wow.
I'm just happy I didn't die before I was 10.
I know,
Right?
right?
When I
Waiting
would have
so
died
long.
unbaptized, I would have died a heathen. Yeah.
And then up next, we have probably the most populous county right now, Montserrado County. Surprise to me, I found out that the capital of Montserrado is Bentonville. Montserrado also has the capital of the nation, which is Monrovia, but the capital of Montserrado specifically is Bentonville or Bentall. So I know there's so much we can talk about in Montserrado County.
Yes. Of course, we know why that is, right? That Bentonville was changed to Bentall because it happened when President William R. Talbot Jr. was president of Liberia, and he developed Bentall, what we call up the river in Liberia. These settlements like Crugerville, Bensonville, White Plains, Arthington. President Taylor was from Arthington, and all these settlements they flourished during Talbot's time, during Talbot's administration, and he made Bensonville the capital of Montserrado County. Okay, and as you're right that the capital of Liberia is Monrovia, but Montserrado County is Bentall. Okay.
I believe he did that Bentall because tall there meaning Talbot. Is that correct?
Yes. He wanted his name to be reflected. If I can tell you a little story about him, my husband was a physician, and one of his colleagues married a niece of President Talbot. So we went to Bentall for the wedding. And Talbot used to always wear these white, what we call swearing suits, because the day they told him he was, after Tubman died, and when they tried to catch him, he was going to his farm in Long County. So when the police escort caught up with him, he had on a white suit. So he came to Monrovia and he was sworn in as the president of Liberia in this white suit. So we Liberians used to call it the swearing suit. So he always wore a white swearing suit. So during the wedding, he had on this white swearing suit, and he picked up my daughter. And I said, "Oh my God, I hope this girl doesn't soil the president's white suit." So he had her, and he had the flag of the Republic on his lapel. So she kept looking at it, and he said to her, he said, "What is it?" Then she said, "Flag," but she was acting shy. So he said, "Do you know how to pledge the, can you say a pledge to the flag?" And she refused to do it. Now, on our way back to Monrovia, she was sitting in the back of the car, and she said, "I pledge allegiance." I said, "You don't pledge allegiance here. You refused to do it earlier, so don't do it. It's too late now." But she doesn't want to do something. I say, "I know you refuse to pledge allegiance to President Talbot."
And I know sometimes it's hard for us to see the positives in Liberia sometimes, but I still want to encourage parents out there that when you do take your children to Liberia, or if you contemplate it, that there are places, especially within Montserrado, where you can take your children. So one of the places of interest in Montserrado County, we have the National Museum of Liberia on Broad Street. It hosts many artifacts there, and they actually renovated it a few years ago. So nice, cool artifacts there, right in the middle of town on Broad Street. Also in the capital, in Monrovia, is the Executive Mansion. You can show that to your children. It's, the equivalent of the White House in Liberia. Do you guys have any stories to share on the Executive Mansion?
Well, It was built in the late 60s, late 50s, and it was completed in the early 60s. And it was built by the Israelis. Okay, and it's one of the most beautiful executive residences in the world, and it has most of the sophisticated technical advancements that were available in the early 60s. It's built right on the ocean, and Monrovia has a lot of nice architecture, but unfortunately, some of them were destroyed or damaged during the different civil wars, the coup, and different military disturbances that happened in Liberia. But one of the, of course, Monrovia has a lot of rocks. The place called Mamba Point is where the American embassy is. It's located on this big boulder. Um, Monrovia is a big rock, and when they were doing the streets in Monrovia, they had to blast rocks, and sometimes for days you couldn't go out because the crews were blasting these huge boulders. Monrovia has what they call the Providence Island, which is the island where the settlers landed in 1821, and now it has been turned into a museum. And there are some other very nice historical attractions in Liberia, but of course, Monrovia now is overpopulated. Back in the 70s, I think Monrovia has 60,000 inhabitants. Now it's more than a million, and it's overcrowded, and people from all over the world, and every nationality, race, creed, religion you can imagine is in Monrovia, and the currency in Monrovia. But what helps Liberia is because we use the American dollar. You can buy anything in Liberia with the American dollar. Up until President Dole was president, you could only use the American dollar. But when he was president, they coined Liberian coins. One of them was called the Liberty. One of them was called the Seven Corners. But the dollar all throughout has been used concurrently with the Liberian dollar. And so as long as we use this dollar, it opens up the country to the world because a lot of countries don't use the dollar. So people come there to do business because they don't have to change what they make their earnings into foreign currency. They can just send the dollar out and nobody asks them, how much are you sending? So it makes Liberia very open to international trade. And people always come where money, we can make money. A lot of people from India, from Saudi Arabia, all over the world, people come to Liberia to do business. From Lebanon, South Africa, you name it, okay? They're there.
Okay. And also in Montserrado is the Centennial Pavilion. Do we know exactly what is the significance of that? Very beautiful area. What is the Centennial Pavilion?
Well, the Centennial Pavilion was built, I think, in the late 40s, where they inaugurated the president of Liberia, and where the government holds functions, where they have sometimes meetings, where they bury the president. If a president dies in office, he's buried from the Centennial Pavilion. It's a national, when they have international conferences, things like that are held at the Centennial Pavilion. And it was built when Liberia was celebrating her centenary in the 1940s.
100 years old.
Yes, when Liberia became 100 years old.
And we have a question from Christopher Wesley asking, why is it called Mamba Point? Do we know the story behind the name of Mamba Point?
I think that person
we have all these tribes, okay? Yeah. We have the Bassett, we have the Mambas, okay? And they were the group, the ethnic group, or the tribe, or whatever you like to call them. There was a guest on Focus on Liberia. He said we shouldn't call them tribes, we should call them nations. Okay, so we can go into that discussion. So the Mambas live in this area, and that's why we call it Mamba Point. We call sometimes we call the Bassas the Mamba Bassas. Okay, so they lived in that area, Mamba Point.
It's like the whole of Monserrate or very big part of Monrovia is owned by the Bassa people. So if you learn in our Liberian history talking about the settlers coming and negotiating for land or buying land, most of them interacted with the Bassa people. So that area was owned by the Mamba people, and so that part of the place, that's why it's called Mamba Point.
In fact, the Bassas had a king called King Peter, and I understand he was a tough negotiator. Okay, so and he was one of the signers, the original signers of the Declaration of Independence.
Okay. Anything else we have to share about Montserrado?
Oh yeah, well, there's so much to be shared about Montserrado because just being the capital and the first area where the settlers lived. There are so many stories. But like if you go to Monrovia and you start, the ships used to dock where now the customs are, opposite Providence Island. That's where the ships used to dock. And then people have to walk up the hill. Of course, Monrovia is a big hill. It's very steep. So when you leave the water side, that's what they call, you will get to Front Street. So if you're really born in Monrovia, you can know how the settlers came. The first settlers to come, they lived on Front Street. And as you go up in Monrovia and you get to Broad Street, you go up the hill, you get to Front Street, you get to Ashman Street, Broad Street, Carey Street, Benson Street. Oh, by the time you get to Benson Street, then you know those people were the Johnny come latelys, okay? And the ones on Front Street were the people who came early. So it's so interesting to know. You can even look at the names and you know where they lived, okay, where they settled. So many stories about Monrovia. They have songs about in 1917, during the war, there was this German gunboat that came to bombard Monrovia. So the people made songs of these things. So just so many interesting things about Monrovia.
Nice. Dennis, we also have some questions from Facebook if you want to go ahead with some of those. Well,
we left out River Seth and River G.
Oh yes, we haven't. Yes, that's true. So let me make sure we get through all of them before we answer questions. So after Montserrado, we have Nimba County, which is also a very populous county and important when it comes to elections. The capital of Nimba is Senequille. Okay. So what do we know about Nimba?
Well, Nimba is a very interesting county. There are more than 3 different ethnic groups that inhabit Nimba: the Gios, the Manos, and the Dans. And in 1960, Tubman invited President Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana and President Sekou Touré of Guinea to come to Senequille, and that's where the Organization of African Unity was created. Now, of course, it's no longer the Organization of African Unity, it's now AU, African Unity. And so Senequille went down in the history books for being the birthplace of the Organization of African Unity. And like any other area in Liberia, there are a lot of ore in Nimba. And and that's where Lamco is located. So they bring the ore down to the river, to the ocean, and ship it out of Liberia. Nimba has so many districts, 17 different districts in Nimba because it's a huge county.
Home of the Nimba Mountain. According to Dr. Tayo, Nimba, the name Nimba, meaning, I think I think it's Nimba tall, meaning a hill is slippery that young girls will fall, something along those lines. So it's a Nimba tall, meaning a slippery hill that will make young girls to fall, something along those lines. And because of Lanco, became very popular. Yekepa, one of the beautiful cities those days. We used to call it Small America. My sister lived there and worked there from the 1970s. So if you wanted to have a little taste of America, you go to Yekepa, where because of the mountains, there used to be some snowfall in there. And very cold, because the little city is electrified, telephone system, everything intact. Nimba has some of the best schools, including Carroll High School in Yekepa, Sanikoli Central High, Ganta Methodist, where my wife attended. And most of this, so Nimba is strategically located right now. Ganta in Nimba County is one of the most popular cities, very commercial cities in Liberia, and so people of Nimba County, they take a lot of pride in their county. They like their county to represent, they promote it a lot. And overall, it's a beautiful place. Talking about soccer, because of Lanco again and the major activities and the schools and all the things that go on in Nimba, their soccer teams were very good, even up to now. And again, those were some of the best players, like Liberia's best goalkeeper, Pee Wee Bestman, came from Yekepa, where he used to play. So that's made Nimba very, very important, very strategic because of the location. Again, Nimba, Bong, and Lofa were known in Liberia as Liberia's bread basket because they really make good farms and they produce a lot of food. And just to add, a lot of ethnic groups, I think someone is trying to mention here, the Bui, the Crown, the Dan, the Ma, and the Mandingo. These are other, these are groups that can be found in Nimba County.
And then up next we have Riversess County. The capital of Riversess County is Seton City. Okay, and so Riversess.
Is Seton City? Yeah, Seton. It's a Portuguese word. That's when we have the Seton River, Seton City, Seton Village in Monrovia. So this word comes from the Portuguese. When you see a word that ends in OS in Africa, it's the Portuguese word. It was derived from the Portuguese, like Lagos, So Seton is Portuguese.
And Riversess is also special to me. That's where my my paternal grandmother is from, Dawson Town in Riversess. Yeah, so Riversess is also one of the newer counties, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Sorry about that. Riversess, one of the 13 counties that was added, one of the that made the county's tech team during the presidency of Mr. Doe. And Riversess, as I said, is one of the least developed counties. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done there. And one of those people from Riversess that I know is Abba Tokpa, who ran as, I think, representative in that area unsuccessfully. And he was on this show to talk about some of the projects that he wants to carry on. This solar panel and those kind of projects. And I hope that's going to, people from Riversess will rally around him so that we can carry on those kind of development. I believe Riverside has an attraction that somebody told me about. I think it's a rock that is hanging somewhere. That I don't. I tried to look it up before the show, but I couldn't really kind of find that. But it says it has some major attractions too.
Yeah. And so Riverside is in the southeastern portion of the country, and I know that that we've been working on getting a paved road to those regions of the country to just connect it to the rest of the country and bring development, and also just open up trade for the people there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a good point.
And then up next we have River G County, and the capital of River G is Fishtown. So what do we know about River G County?
Well, it has 6 districts, so in other words, it's well represented in the legislature. But because of, as you said, we don't have roads to go to these counties. River G, River Cess, it makes it difficult for development to be brought to that part of Liberia. So maybe that's what we need to focus on. I guess this administration wanted to build a road along the coast to go down to those counties. And once that is done, then things will progress there. I'm hoping and praying.
River G used to be what was called Lower Grand Jita as part of Grand Jita County. So during the presidency of President Taylor, that county was created, taking out what used to be Lower Grand Jita to stand on its own. The capital city, Fishtown, according to what I was told by someone from River G, is that's a way of saying the original name is fish, but in the Palipo that come from that part of River G call it Nesime, something like a water fish. But in their school, they used to have strict orders not to speak your dialect in school. So they had a way, instead of saying fish, or a fish town in Gribble, they said Fish Town. So it became the English name of the actual name. So that's how it's called Fish Town. But the actual name of it is Nesime, which is water fish or the water of fish or something like that. So that's how it became Fish Town. It's again one of those counties that is not really developed, but so it's still virgin. It gives the opportunity for people to kind of make some investment there. One of the major town is Kanweke, which is in Boipo district, and that's what most people knew. So when the River G became a county, people thought that was going to be the capital city. But as you can see, Mosurado capital city is not Monrovia, it's Bentall or Bensonville. So probably in the wisdom of those people, they say, well, let's look for a kind of virgin place that we can develop from scratch.
Well, like here in Maryland, right? Baltimore is the biggest city, but the capital is in Annapolis, which is a small town,
Yeah.
I don't know. Politicians do that, I don't know. Just a sidebar.
And then finally, the 15th county, and not the last county, and the county very dear to our boss's heart is Seton County. The capital of Seton is Greenville. And one of the places of interest in Seton County is the Sapo Forest.
Yes. The Sapo National Forest.
Yes.
It's a big place. And as you said, there are some animals and vegetation that have not been explored yet, And
I believe, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I believe one of the animals in the Sapo National Forest is the hippopotamus, the pygmy hippo, which I think is special to the Sapo Forest. And I believe elephants also were once there and are coming back now.
Mhm.
So the Sapo Forest is definitely a place of interest, and there is potential for us to grow tourism around that natural treasure.
Mm-hmm.
Why Sino have to be the last? Oh, that's S. And
You see?
so
The most important, so we made it last.
right, you saved the best for last, and by coincidence, I'm born and raised in Sino, and my town, Dudwoken, we have the major attraction that I was telling you about. My hometown of Dudwoken in Sino is there's a creek there called Nemani, and on Nemani we have what we believe to be the footprint of a toddler, and you know who that toddler is? Jesus Christ of Nazareth. So we believe there's a footprint of Jesus on a rock that as a 2-year-old, I tried my foot in, or maybe 3 or 4-year-old, and when your foot fits in that little footprint that we say footprint, you celebrate because you're Jesus. So somebody asked me, how do you know Jesus' footprint is in your hometown? I said, because God is everywhere.
Okay. That's so true.
And
special.
Sino County is the whole of Southeast. What we notice is there's a lot of urban migration. People leave Sino, Grand Cru, Maryland, now River G to go to Montserrat County and live. So if you see people of that are settled predominantly in New Cru Town, West Point, Clara Town, and sometimes Logan Town, they are predominantly from Southeast. From those counties, Sino, Grand Cru, Maryland, Grand Judah, River G, and stuff like that. So there's a lot of gold also in Sino. From the time my father was a young boy, they have been digging gold in this place called Bokonjiri up to now, and they are still digging gold. So I think that's one of these attractions also in that area.
And we can go to, before we go to questions, have you ever visited Sapo National Forest?
No. I've driven by there, but I haven't been into the forest on my way to the Palmers. We drove through this high forest. I don't know which one was Sapo, but I know I went through the high forest, and it's impressive. You look up and feel it's something like in California, it's tall trees.
And the forest is not, the Sapo National Park is not like a separate place. Everywhere, because my hometown, Dodwoken, is part of the Sapo National Park. So so all the places, because these are little towns in the midst of these vast jungles, right? So it's not like, you have a fence that you build around a place. That's where the people live. So all that thick forest, that's part of the Sapo National Park. And so at a time, we were not supposed to even go hunting, or make farm in those areas. But so they have some foresters who will arrest people who will kill the animals and do stuff like that. But it happened, I think right now, they say the place is inhabited by, people from all parts of West Africa living in the forest, because during the war, those places were being, people used that as their hideout, and they were in the forest, just hiding from rebels. So after the war, people have gone there. They are kind of doing all kinds of things in the forest, but and it continues today.
We can go to some comments and questions on Facebook.
Before we,
Christopher Wesley says, the Sapo National Park covers Sino, Grand Judah, and River G counties. Sino has the largest portion.
He could be correct. I'm not sure, but he could be correct.
And our First Lady, Mrs. Eugenia Ja, asked, just joining, did you talk about the great county of Nimba? And so, yes, we did talk about
Nimba. Okay. Okay. Tell her I will speak you and Mano will come. Okay.
Christopher Wesley also says that it was a territory before. I hail from there. Roxas behind the Sestos River. It has two tribes, the Bassett and Cru. And Ellen Poor also commented that there are 5 ethnic groups in Nimba. And so I guess there are 5 major groups in Nimba.
All right. Something I want to mention about the names in Liberia. I know we talk about the names, but sometimes the place the names come from. I just want to give few examples. Like in Monrovia, we have a place called PHP, and people know that PHP. PHP, according to what was written by Dr. Joe Baba one time, it said PHP stands for Public Health Pond, POND. So I think there was that pool of water, there was a public health that was located there, and behind, near the beach where most young people went to swim, it was, so they called that a public health pond because there was a public health department. It was located nearby, on Lang Street. So you had that little pool of water, so they called it public health pond, and it became PHP. And also, Barclay Training Center was named after President Barclay. That's why they named that Barclay Training Center. There is a place in, I think it's Mangibby County called Smell No Taste. Smell No Taste, I think they said it got the name because some Americans came, I think during World War II. They built their camp there, and in the evening, they will cook, man, and start frying their stuff, and the food will smell so good. But what happened? Nobody's going to eat it, right? Because you are not part of them, right? So you're not going to eat it. So they named that old. So anytime you are cooking that other people smell it, but they can't eat it because you're not going to give them. So they started calling them Smell No Taste. So that's how that place became SNT, Smell No Taste. I think Mangibby or Bon County, if I'm not mistaken. Then the last thing, before you get to the airport. Yeah. Then the last thing I want to talk about is Pusawa. All of us know what we call Pusawa rice in Liberia. Well, according to the story, Pusawa came from Firestone among the Pele people, because when Firestone introduced bringing in rice and they were paying their employees in rice, 30 cups of rice. So Pusawa, 30 cups, Pu in Pele means 10. So 3 tens, Pusawa. So that's how they started calling. So each employee was entitled to 30 cups of rice or 3 groups of 10. So the rice itself became Pusawa. That's how we got the name Pusawa today. So in Liberia, we have a way of naming things. And if you're not careful, you never know what this means.
True.
You know what a Yana boy is?
Okay, go ahead.
No, in Liberia we have peddlers who go around selling. Okay, so so when he sees people sitting down, he will go and say to them, "Yana," or they will ask him, "Yana, have you come?" Ya means you, and na is to come. So it's the Vai word for the guy who goes around selling. So we call him the Yana boy. Have you come? If you're aware.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia. We are discussing the counties of Liberia. These are counties. We have discussed some of the historical sites or the major attraction in those counties, little history about those counties, and the capital cities. And we've been kind of talking about this. So if you just joined us, that's the discussion we're on. This was intended specifically for our students who are staying home as a result of the COVID virus. Back to you, Danielle.
And we have another comment from Ava Jamel Deka said, "Wow, I was born on PHP. That's an amazing revelation. Thanks." So I'm glad that our viewers can learn, the young and the old, and those of us in between, we can all learn. Yes, I'm happy that we were able to do this and review the counties and their capitals and those, special places. As small as Liberia is and as insignificant as it may seem to the rest of the world, we are a beautiful place, and there are many treasures within this, small country on the west coast of Africa. I hope that you're able to see the beauty of our country as it is now. We can see the potential, but even as it is right now, it's still very beautiful.
And most of the time, what people know about Liberia is misinformation. So, especially if you were born today, you think Liberia is what you see now, but it's more to that. And in spite of what we think, Liberia is a beautiful place. It's unique. As what somebody told me is Liberia is the only country where we cook everything in one pot. You can have your crab, your pig food, your fish, everything, and put it in one. Nobody else does that on the face of the earth except us.
So, on the other hand, the food in Liberia tastes good. Okay? Yes, we cook in one pot, but it tastes very nice.
Very, very good.
One time, that Liberia is a rich country. And I said, what makes Liberia rich? They say, you guys cook every day. Every day you cook a new soup, as we call it, right? We don't eat cocoa or state food, Every day, I don't care how poor that family is, they cook a new dish every day. So as long as we can do that, we bad off, but not that bad off. Okay?
The original intent of the country being created was to be that safe haven, that oasis in Africa, that place you go to find freedom, because that's why it was set up. So we can all do our best so as to contribute towards that goal, so that at the end we can realize Liberia has that place where you can go and find rest, the Lone Star of Africa.
Nice.
When we're watching television about all these daily briefings, so this question about these cruise ships flying the flags of other countries came up, and then a particular gentleman said, "Well, if the cruise ships or the cruise lines want to benefit from this COVID-19 bailout that the government is giving, $50 billion to airlines and shipping companies. But the ones that are registered under the Liberian flag won't get it because, they don't pay taxes here." So then somebody said, "Oh yes, then they have to register it in America." So I'm hoping that it will not diminish the revenue that Liberia gets from the shipping companies. Okay, so we're hoping and praying that wouldn't happen. Because that has been a major state, the backbone of Liberia. Even things were bad, but at least the government could get some money from this so-called flag of convenience. Okay, so we pray that doesn't happen.
That's true, and definitely, while everyone is dealing with the effects of COVID-19, we really hope that this is something temporary and that this is not our new way of life, as some people have been saying. So we remain hopeful.
We remain hopeful. I helped with the Ebola crisis back in 2014. I'm not a medical doctor, but they put me on the board of directors of the Liberian Medical Association. And together we used to have conferences in the middle of the night that we send PPEs and disinfectants and medicines to Liberia. And the other day now they're calling me again to do it. I said, you guys, I'm an old woman now. I need somebody to send, PPEs to me, So, but let's see what God will do. God is great. And sometimes he uses the most unlikely people to do things. Yeah. So,
until then, we want to say thank you so much for watching. I want to go back to Danielle to conclude for the night.
Yes, thank you all for watching. If you weren't able to have your child in front of the screen right now, we will upload this video to YouTube, so you can play this for your children and your niece and nephews, grandchildren, so that way they can learn about where you are from, where their roots are. So we hope this has been very educational for you all. We will continue with this, and we hope to review presidents and have some language courses, Bassett, Pele, just give the children the opportunity to learn a little bit more about their culture. So thank you so much for joining us. And again, I hope this was really informative for you. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, like our Facebook page, and thank you so much for spending your Sunday evening with us. And we'll be back next Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern. Dennis?
We all are
Thank you.